Tēnā tātou katoa. Welcome to today's Kōrero for Mental Health Awareness Week. I'm Gina Malo, the Head of Delivery at Ignite Aotearoa, and we're thrilled to be bringing you this Kōrero Series this week in celebration and acknowledgement of Mental Health Awareness Week. Kia ora, John. Thank you for joining us. Would you like to start with a little introduction of yourself, please, John?
Yes. Shall I do it in Te Reo or in English? I can.
However you would.
Okay. Ko makamaka ki o te pote te maunga, ko tairi te awa, ko John toku ingoa, nā mai haere mai, nā mihi nui kia koutou. My name is John. I was brought up in South Island, just outside of Dunedin, beneath a mountain called Saddle Hill, which for many years they'd been digging the hill out. So it was a kind of wounded mountain. They were making roads with it. And every time you looked at it, there was a bit more of it that was gone. And the Tari River was next to us. It used to overflow its banks on a regular basis. I think it was quite a young river, sort of like a young person who doesn't know its boundaries. So I sort of grew up amidst, there was this sense of beauty, but also the sense of woundedness, and also a sense of from time to time, nature would show how unruly it could be. I'm an old person now, but I have this life practice that sort of just evolved, which is that every year I have a birthday with a 0. I like to do something quite unexpected that I wasn't planning on doing. So when I saw my 50th birthday approaching, somehow I ended up training to be a yoga teacher. And I've been doing that ever since in places like this, but also for about the last 8 or 9 years in prisons. And I'm the chair of the Yoga in Prisons Trust, and also in addiction recovery centers. So I've, and my earlier life, before being a yoga teacher, I worked in Wellington, in and around government, and worked on a couple of inquiries. And in 2018, I was asked to work on the inquiry into mental health and addictions, which produced a report a couple of years ago, which led to $1.9 billion of additional funding for mental health services. So, you know, as time goes on, sometimes the streams of your life start to merge together. So I'm really interested in the way in which, not just yoga, but things that work several layers of ourselves simultaneously, how they can help us find stability and ease and focus. And sometimes, a kind of a way out that is, kind of like more affirming of our own process, rather than we're following some kind of clinical approach. And I have no problems with clinical approaches, but I think, you know, we're often much bigger than that. And mental health in particular is an area where the person themselves has to be involved, has to feel that they are part of it. It's not like you can, if you have a broken arm, you can sort of more or less hand that on to the doctors to fix it, and you just play along.
That's a great segue into the topic for our chat, John, because you gave the topic for your chat as how the body can helping the body to heal the mind.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a big statement. And is that really possible? And if it is, can you tell us how?
Well, I think it is possible. I wouldn't have said it otherwise. I don't necessarily think it's easy or quick. Certainly, what I have found, experienced, observed is that there are things that we can do with our bodies consciously that will put us into a different state of mind. So, you know, there is and of course there's interesting science that keeps emerging around this. So there is this much of what goes on within us. We're sort of like the conscious bit is the tip of an iceberg, and the rest of it's the iceberg. These are things that we do, we feel, we respond automatically without any conscious choice. The sort of coverall term is the autonomic nervous system. So we walk into a room, we sense things that are going on, and that either makes us a bit more vigilant, or maybe it makes us feel calm and safe. And all of that happens, you know, without us having to consciously think about it, and it happens within the body. So when it gets to the stage where we are consciously thinking about it, it's been happening for a while, and that's not a bad thing. Obviously, you know, that if there are good reasons to feel uneasy, then it's really helpful to pick those kind of things up. But I guess what we find is that when we're, say, overstimulated with distressful thoughts, distressful situations, we can get stuck in that mode, that sort of hypervigilant mode. And it's our body trying to, it's our autonomic nervous system trying to protect us in the short term. But if the threat really isn't there, if we've sort of got stuck on autopilot, then that's, you know, that's not serving us. And sometimes we can, you know, address that kind of issue head on. But other times we just have to, we can recognize that because it arises in our body first, there are things that we can do physically to release tension, to calm ourselves. And a lot of them are things that we've known about for a long time, and that, I don't know, we probably all have a grandmother who told us, if you feel, you know, if you feel, if something really distressing happens to you, just take some deep breaths. And it turns out that there's some amazing science behind taking deep breaths, calming the nervous system. And also when you breathe, especially breathing into the belly, there's this big nerve called the vagus nerve, which sort of circulates around the belly area. So if you take a deep breath into the belly, you'll be stretching and toning the vagus nerve. And among other things, that nerve has a direct impact on our mood. And I think it's pretty clear that's part of the reason why taking deep breaths actually helps us calm down, gets us out of that fear and flight mode, more into a calm mode where we're, you know, where we're able to see things more clearly, where we can slow down our thinking processes. So yeah, even though, you know, much of what happens to us we don't control consciously, there are ways in which we can recognize what's going on, maybe recognize the ways in which tension and distress are sort of ending up getting stuck in our bodies, and then working with the body to release that. There's a saying somewhere, I forget who attributed it, that sometimes history becomes our biology. So the experiences that we have, especially if they are repeated experiences, they sort of end up somehow stuck in maybe things like musculoskeletal system. So we might I mean, an obvious example at the moment with us all hunched over computers and Zoom is that our pectoral muscles are going to be tighter. The muscles on the back of our shoulder girdle are going to be sort of weaker and more elongated. Our head will drop forward. We'll get problems in the back of the neck, and we'll end up with a posture which actually makes it quite difficult to have a positive outlook on life. I think so. Sometimes simply by changing our posture, we can change the sort of background of how we are feeling. I'm not suggesting that we can turn things off magically, as it were, but we can put ourselves in a position where we're less likely to get sort of drawn into those negative circles of thought. Yeah, so I know it is a bold statement, and I don't want anyone to think that it's a magic bullet. But I guess one of the basic ideas behind yoga, it was something Vanessa was talking about, and thanks to Vanessa for stepping in during my technical glitch. The body and the mind are connected, and the state of our minds is impacted by the state of our bodies.
Thanks, John. There's so much in that. I was sort of picking up the, you're alluding to the benefits of breathing and posture and, daily yoga practice. Also, that those deep breathing exercises are really helpful in a moment where you might be having that fight or flight response, to take some deep breaths.
Yeah, and I think it's something, as you say, it doesn't have to be daily, but it's a skill. It's not a pill. So it really does help to practice some of those simple and maybe sometimes not so simple techniques when things are going well, so that you can, as it were, just reach out and grab them off the shelf when you need them.
On that note about the simple and the not so simple, is yoga suitable for everyone? Can everyone use some of these techniques that you're talking about?
Yes. What I would say though is that yoga is a big world, and what has happened in Western countries is we've latched on to the little bit that kind of fits our own culture, and in particular our fitness culture, and that's fine. It's great, but there is this tendency for it to become seen as sort of something that you have to be flexible, you have to be fit even to get started. So I have a lot of people who say to me, I'd love to do yoga, but I'm not flexible enough. You know what? That's actually the whole point. It's work with what you've got. So I think part of the challenge that people like myself have is making sure that it is accessible, and that there isn't this sort of vibe of, you really need to be 25 years old and a former ballet dancer and to look good in certain types of clothing. I think it's kind of understandable how we might have got there, but there are many ways in which there are many yoga practices that can be adapted or can be accessed by pretty much anyone. I at the moment I have a family yoga Zoom on Thursday nights with all ages of my family. The oldest is 88. So we do a lot of work which is you can sit in a chair, and the principles apply regardless. And I think that's where focusing on the breath is actually really important. And in a sense, that's, yeah, I think that's almost like it's the heart of it, that some of the physical stuff that you might do to sort of, wrap your body up, that is good for the joints. But one of the other things that it helps to train is to be maybe feeling slightly uncomfortable, slightly extended, but then to return to that steady breath. So it's almost like a lot of the yoga postures, their impact is to draw attention, well, to sort of distract us. And then the practice is to, okay, let's get back to breathing steadily. Let's reestablish that steady breath. And it's almost like, I think that's at the heart of it in terms of mental well-being, because I get from time to time into a state where I actually realize I'm uncomfortable, I'm distracted, and usually when that happens, if I'm self-aware enough, I will notice that my breath has sped up. And then instead of breathing down and using my diaphragm, I tend to be breathing in my upper chest, and often I'm breathing through my mouth rather than my nose. So reversing that helps to calm me down, but also to release tension. So I would say, if you've got if there is there are skilled teachers who can start with any situation and create, but one of my favorite personal experiences was at Auckland South Prison. I was told that I was going to have 3 students in my class, and they would all be referrals from the health team. I thought, okay, let's see what happens. The door opens and a man walks in with a white cane. So he was blind. So I thought, okay, right, we have to be careful about doing much balancing. Who's next? The next person had what's called a kyphosis on his upper back. So he'd been a semi-professional road cyclist. So he was very much hunched over like that. So I thought, okay, we're going to have to do some gentle chest stretches. Who could the third one be? In walked this beautifully proportioned 23-year-old Samoan guy. They didn't tell me a lot, but with some fairly severe anxiety issues going on. So my job was, at a moment's notice, create something that engages these 3 different people. And we got there. We had a lot of fun. So yeah, I think sometimes it's important when you're looking at a yoga teacher or a yoga class to contact them first and just find out, what's the class going to be like. I'm a big advocate of one-to-one sessions at some stage. I think it's just really helpful to have a person who is, looking at you alone and enabling you to work with where your body is at. Comparing yourself to someone else is often not helpful. I think a lot of us have, we're all built differently. So some people can, link hands behind the back of their shoulders. I can't. I've never got there because my shoulders are too tight and I don't have enough space in my joints. So it's not a competition. But even though I can't touch fingers, I can create more space, and so it's sort of a case of ideally working with someone at the start to get you going. But there are many, many different permutations.
That's awesome. Thank you, John. You actually covered what was going to be my next and last question, which was around what your advice would be for someone to get started with yoga. So just for everyone joining us, John is available to book a session with through the Ignite platform if you have an Ignite subscription. If you don't have an Ignite subscription and you're interested in finding out what services Ignite provide, please flick us an email to hello@ignite.org.nz and we can send you some information. John, thank you so much for the wisdom that you've shared with us today. I know that was a very short chat in the scheme of things, but I think there were a lot of nuggets there for us to think about, and for anyone who's interested in working on their breathing, their posture, and learning some techniques to maybe help them through some of the more challenging times that we all experience from time to time. It definitely sounds like yoga has a lot to offer.
Thanks, Gina, and thanks everyone. And sorry for my slip up at the start. So in terms of where to start, yeah, I think it's very helpful to start with a one-to-one session, or certainly some people quite like the group experience. That can be helpful. You know, you can hide a little bit, and that's fine. It's helpful now with Zoom because you can just have your camera off, and I mean, it is quite important to get some instruction to begin with, but then once you're underway, it really is about you got to have your own experience, not someone else's. And I think all of our bodies in some way can move. We can reflect on what's going on for us physically, how that connects to our state of mind. And I mean, one other thing to bear in mind is that traditionally, I'm talking from India, traditionally what we in the West think of as yoga, which is generally the physical side of it, that was what you did to prepare your body to sit in the full lotus position for 4 hours without moving and meditate. And so, very much, I'm not suggesting you need to meditate for 4 hours, but very much linking the working with the body with practicing some form of mindfulness, whatever it is that works for you. That's really important. And that's all kind of part of the deal.
Thank you, John, and thank you everyone for joining us.